Hi everybody, welcome to the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Raising A to Z. It is a YouTube channel all about homeschooling. My name is Amanda and I am a teacher turned homeschool mom. And the other day we went out for dinner with a friend who we haven't seen in a long time thanks to this whole COVID-19 thing. We were out to dinner with them for the first time and they were asking us about like, how's homeschooling going? And they started asking a bunch of questions about homeschooling. And it was kind of funny because as I was sitting there and answering all the questions, I realized that these are the questions I answer all the time. Whether it is from people who I meet out in the world, friends, family, the dentist, the eye doctor, or it's people who are sending messages to me through like the DMs on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even emails, or even comments down below our videos. These are the kind of questions that I get asked all the time. And these are kind of like the same questions. So whether it is people who are just have never heard of homeschooling or are really surprised that I as a teacher would homeschool, whether it is people who are homeschool curious and like thinking about homeschooling, or parents who are brand new to homeschooling, they tend to ask the same bunch of questions. So I thought I would do a video answering the questions I get asked all the time. I think it's gonna be a two-parter because there are quite a few questions, and like to give a really good answer and like to explain how I answer these questions, which I think a lot of homeschoolers are curious because they get asked the same questions all the time. I think it's gonna be a two-parter. So this is part one, and yeah, let's get started. If you guys are new to homeschooling, if you've been homeschooling veterans and you are gearing up to start planning your homeschool year, you're definitely gonna want to check out the Essential Homeschool Planner. This planner was designed by me. It includes everything you need to plan, stay organized, and have a great homeschool year, from beautiful monthly spreads to the unit stay planner, which you guys specifically requested to be included in the Essential Homeschool Planner. There's all kinds of cool things in this planner that makes homeschooling and planning your homeschool year a little bit easier. So you'll definitely want to check this out. I'll put a link at the bottom. It is available on Amazon or as a PDF download from my website. Questions I get asked all the time. First question, how do you start? How do I start homeschooling? Obviously, I get this from a lot of parents who are interested in homeschooling, and I'm going to tell you it's a little bit different from area to area. So we live in Ontario, and here in Ontario it is super simple. If your kid has never been to school, you don't have to do anything. Mine have never been. We don't send letters to anyone because with 4 boards in our area, how would anybody know which board they are enrolled with? Like it doesn't make any sense. So in our area and in Ontario, if your kids have never been enrolled, you don't have to do anything. If you are pulling your child from public school or private school, you need to send a letter of intent, which is basically a very simple letter that says, this is my child, this is their name, their birthday, and I am pulling them out of school to homeschool them with a date. You can either, and you have to send that to your board office, you can either send it by mail, or a lot of people just email them today because it gives you an automatic timestamp. So for a lot of people, that's what they need, is to like know that it's been acknowledged. And most of the time, say like 95% of the time, the board will send you back a letter of acknowledgement that they did get your homeschooling letter of intent. Some people need it for various things, but I have a whole video on that if you guys want more information on like the homeschooling process, how to like take your kids out of the system. I'll put a link up here. After that, the first thing you need to do is take some time to de-school, which is just not doing anything academic and just having a chance for you as a parent and for your kids to adjust to being at home, adjust to what your natural rhythms are, take time to reconnect as a family, because that's a thing that a lot of people don't realize happens when they're in the public school system, is that there's a disconnect that happens because you're just not together as much. So you need some more time to reconnect and to find out what you're actually interested in. So yeah, you want to take some time to de-school. I have a video on that, which is fantastic. I'll include a link to all the videos that I reference if you need more information. But after a certain period of time, then I recommend starting with 1 or 2 subjects and then slowly introducing some curriculum or some worksheets, workbooks, more learning, academic type activities, and just kind of going from there and seeing what direction your family's going in and what you guys want to study and how you want to study that. So that's how you start. You withdraw, or if they're never in the system, don't even worry about step 1. You take some time to de-school and then start with 1 to 2 subjects and move on from there. Number 2, who checks up on you? I get this question from a lot of people who hear that I homeschool and they're curious about it. They're just like, they've never met anybody. And I also see it from homeschoolers who have come from other provinces. So the question is, who checks up on you? Who do you report to as a homeschool parent? In Ontario, I don't report to anybody. So I don't have to send reports. I don't have to have my kids tested. I don't have to do any of that type of stuff. Now, that is very different from other provinces. Every province has its own rules and regulations around homeschooling, and some have very lax rules like Ontario. Some have very, very strict rules like Quebec. And there's a whole spectrum in between of what needs to happen. So some places you do have annual reports you have to send in. Your kids have to have a test annually. There's all kinds of different rules. So that is definitely something you have to check with your specific province or state. But like I said, here in Ontario, no one checks up on us. We are considered completely free and autonomous and able to teach your kids how, what, and when we want. Number 3, this is a comment I get a lot when I tell people that I homeschool and when I tell them that I'm a teacher that homeschools. I get this comment / question all the time. Number 3 is, well, you're a teacher, so it's okay that you homeschool, but like, what about other people who aren't teachers? They shouldn't be homeschooling, right? It makes me really angry because it's completely untrue. Being a teacher might give me a slight advantage on a few things, like reading curriculum documents from the government, but really, teaching and homeschooling are not the same thing. Teachers are trained to handle a large number of children and have them learn all at the same time, whereas homeschoolers are generally dealing with a much smaller number of children. For example, I've got 2. And there's a very big difference. Like, I can work much quicker and much more efficiently with my kids than I could ever work with a class of 30. So much of their teachers college training is actually not about teaching. It's about managing the number of students, because there is actually no specific way to teach any subject. Like, when you go to teachers college, you don't learn how to teach kids to read. That's not a class you take, because there is no set way of teaching kids how to read. There are a variety of approaches. There are several different options you can take. Those are sometimes dependent on what state or province you live in, which path you take, and what options you have. But there's no set, like, this is how you do it. So homeschooling parents are in the same boat as teachers. What works for one kid might not work for another. How you want to teach it and how you understand it might not work. You end up being in the same boat, regardless of whether you went to teachers college or not. And I see some people who get really upset when they hear that parents don't need to be certified teachers to homeschool their kids. And I think that's a very interesting thought, because there's a meme out there, or like a quote or whatever, and it says, don't question your ability to teach your child, question the system that made you feel like you can't teach your child. And I think that's a really powerful quote, because no one knows who said it. It's unknown. I think it's a really powerful quote because as parents, we have taught our children how to do so many things in life. We've taught them to speak. We've taught them to, helped them learn to walk. We've helped them learn their manners and how to do a variety of chores, which are tasks. We've taught them to ride a bike. We've taught them to be kind and courteous. Like, there's tons of things that we've taught them. And then for some reason, we put the stipulation that we are unable to teach them how to do certain things that are academic. So because we are their parents, we don't know how to teach them how to do math, or we don't know how to teach them how to read. It's not true. You can totally do it. There's a variety of options out there to help you do it. Curriculum, YouTube videos, courses. There's so many things out there that you can have your kid do to help you teach those things if they're not something you're strong at. But really, there's nothing about, if you can read, there's no reason why you can't read to your child. And through reading books to your child will learn to read. Like, it's really that simple. So if that's just not something I worry about, and I just don't think it's something that parents who are not teachers should worry about. If you want to homeschool your kids, you can do it. Number 4, we get this question a lot. It's more of a personal question. I'm sure every person who homeschools their kids out there gets this question, The question is, do you ever plan on sending your kids to school? What about high school? And people are always surprised when I say, I'm like, probably not. Right now, we kind of sit on this very interesting, like I said, this is very personal. It's very situational. It's dependent on so many factors and different life circumstances for everybody. So this question and this answer is totally our family personal journey and opinion. So in the foreseeable future, we do not plan on sending our kids to school, and definitely not to any school with the goal of getting a diploma. We at this point don't really see any benefit to a diploma. We don't see any benefits to them going to school. Everything they need to learn and want to learn and can learn, they can do at home with us. And so we don't really plan on sending them to school ever. Now, the only stipulation that we've ever said on that statement is if they wanted to attend high school for fun. So let me explain. My husband is a high school teacher, and a couple years back, they had some homeschool kids who went to his high school, and no one knew what to do with them because they didn't want to do a traditional high school diploma. So they were just there to take the classes that they wanted to take. And so they would come in and they would take a photography class and a biology class and maybe like a vocal choir class. And that's it. Like, they were not there to fulfill all the requirements. They were not there to take so many maths and sciences unless they wanted to. They were there to just have a high school experience and take the classes that they wanted to take. They had done a whole bunch of other classes and they felt like they were just there for fun. We kind of love that idea. So if they ever wanted to go to school or to high school, that's kind of the plan that we have for them, is that they would go and take classes that they want to take and not necessarily be stuck to the rules of requirements, which are incredibly arbitrary. They're just decided by somebody to make kids stay in school. So that's our opinion on what our kids are going to do. For the foreseeable future, they are not going to school. They are going to do as much as they can at home with us. And that's just the way we want it. What about university? Everyone was worried, especially once I tell them that plan, that our kids are never going to go to university. And this, I think, is a two-part answer. So first off, it is totally possible. If a child wants to go to university, there are so many options out there for how to get to university nowadays. It is even more open than what it was, I'd say, even 15, 20 years ago. So many places are recruiting homeschoolers, and so many schools are recruiting homeschoolers, particularly because homeschoolers tend to do better in the long run of completing university programs. They have a higher completion rate than a lot of high schoolers. So for that reason alone, a lot of university programs have requirements for homeschoolers, and there are a lot of options for homeschoolers to go to school. So it might be as simple as submitting a portfolio. So a lot of universities accept portfolios from kids showing their work. Some universities require certain classes to be taken, so it might require you to take 4 classes through a third party, so it's not your parents grading it. Some of them will accept like a GED or a SAT test, or forget all that, wait a year and apply as a mature student. That is totally an option as well. So there are so many ways to get into a university program if that is something a child really wants to do. And at the moment, we're nowhere near there, so we will cross that bridge when we get there, but we're not worried about university. If our kids want to go, we will find a way. There will be multiple ways of them to get into university, and it will just depend on what program they want to take. That's really the big difference, is from program to program, school to school, it's different. So you kind of just have to pick your program and your school first, and then figure out what the requirements are and work your way back. It's not a big deal. It's totally doable. But number 2, I think we need to like take a step back of the whole what about university thing and recognize university isn't what it once was. Like, it used to be that you would go to university, you would graduate, and it was pretty much a guarantee for a good career with a good solid pay and a good job for the rest of your life. That's not necessarily the case nowadays. So there are a lot of other educational options that kids can take out there. Trades, apprenticeships, college, community college programs that sometimes have much better employment rates than universities. There's also like the option of just learning on the job. There's so many options out there for education that don't necessarily require going to university. And a lot of those options are actually better financially in the long run, because you aren't paying thousands of dollars for an education that isn't going to get you necessarily that high paying job that you're hoping for. We don't want to pigeonhole our kids into having to go to university. We want to keep their options wide open. And so that is what we are doing. We're not forcing university, and we encourage them to follow whatever education path they desire. Simple as that. And then the final question in this part, socialization. If I had $1 for every time someone asked me about socialization, I would be very rich. I will say the question has changed. Before the pandemic, we definitely got a lot of, so like, how do they socialize? What do you do with them? Oh my gosh, like, what about socialization? A lot of concern about it. Now the question has like eased up a lot. There's still like the question of like socialization, but it's a lot more gentle. It's much more like, oh, so they like do classes and stuff. They still see other kids, but like, yeah, they still do that. It's like, yeah. So I find like, nice thing about pandemic, looking for silver linings here, is that the socialization question has really changed. I find that it's a little bit gentler lately, and that's exactly what it is. For us, socialization is not necessarily seeing the same kids every single day for the next 8, 10, 12 years of your life because they happen to be in your area and have the same birthday or be born in the same year as you. That's not what socialization is. For us, socialization is learning how to exist in society. It's learning how to be a productive member of society and how to interact with people around you, regardless of any factors, age, race, sex, what hair color you have. Like, regardless of anything, know how to handle and behave and interact with people. And so our kids learn that mostly through life, just being in existence and going to places, because we take them a lot of places. But our kids also participate in a lot of activities. We do co-ops, we do classes, we do playgroups, we do meetups, we do all kinds of stuff to interact and spend time with other homeschoolers. Our kids get a lot of socialization. They get to spend a lot of time with kids, but they also get to spend a lot of time with other people. They get to spend a lot of time with their grandparents and with cousins. They get to spend a lot of time with other teenagers and or adults. Like, they get to spend time with people of a variety of backgrounds and ages, and I think that's really helps them to be very well-rounded. And so yeah, our kids are super socialized. If you ever meet my kids, you would be very shocked at how comfortable they are in social situations, I think, and how much they love to, like, we'll just chat your ear off and have a great time with you. So we don't worry about socialization. It is pretty much a non-issue, and most homeschoolers who've been doing it for at least 2 years will tell you it's not a problem at all. Yeah, those are the first kind of round of questions that I get asked all the time as a homeschool mom, and I hope they gave you some ideas on how you can answer those questions that you're asked, or answer the question for you if you were kind of concerned about them, if that's something that's holding you back from homeschooling. Thank you so much for watching. Part 2 will be up next week, and until then, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I'll see you guys then. Bye.